The helicopter's rotors cut through the thick Afghan air as Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Sullivan stared out at the rugged terrain below. His weathered hands gripped his rifle, knuckles white from years of combat missions that had taken him from the deserts of Iraq to the mountains of Afghanistan. At 42, Sullivan had seen more action than most soldiers would in 3 lifetimes. But something about this mission felt different. The intelligence briefing had been unusually sparse, and the coordinates they'd been given led to a remote valley that wasn't supposed to exist on any official maps. The team of 8 Navy SEALs sat in silence, each man lost in his own thoughts as they approached their target. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Reed, the team leader, had briefed them on what little they knew. A downed aircraft had been spotted by satellite imagery in a previously unexplored region of the Hindu Kush Mountains. The craft appeared to be of unknown origin, and initial reconnaissance suggested it had been there for decades, possibly since the Soviet occupation in the 1980s. As the helicopter descended toward the landing zone, Sullivan noticed something odd about the landscape. The valley seemed untouched by time, with no signs of human habitation or even animal tracks. The silence was deafening when the engines finally shut down, leaving only the whisper of wind through the rocky outcroppings. The team quickly established a perimeter and began their trek toward the crash site, which was located approximately 2 kilometers from their landing point. The wreckage came into view after an hour of careful navigation through treacherous terrain. What they found defied explanation. The aircraft was unlike anything any of them had ever seen. Its hull was made of a metallic substance that seemed to shift color in the sunlight, and despite being buried partially in the mountainside, it showed no signs of rust or decay. The craft was roughly triangular in shape, about 60 feet in length, with no visible engines or conventional propulsion systems. Sergeant First Class David Chen, the team's demolitions expert, ran his hands along the smooth surface of the craft. "This doesn't look like any Soviet technology I've ever seen," he whispered into his radio. "The metal feels warm to the touch, and there are symbols carved into the hull that don't match any language in our databases." The symbols appeared to be etched with precision that suggested advanced technology, forming intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. As the team circled the wreckage, they discovered what appeared to be an entry point that had been partially exposed by decades of erosion. The opening was just large enough for a man to squeeze through, and it led into the dark interior of the craft. Reed made the decision to send 2 men inside, while the others maintained security around the perimeter. Sullivan volunteered immediately, his curiosity overriding his natural caution. Inside the craft, Sullivan's flashlight revealed an interior that was impossibly well preserved. The walls were lined with panels covered in the same mysterious symbols they'd found on the exterior, and strange geometric shapes seemed to float in transparent tubes filled with an unknown liquid. The air inside was stale but breathable, with a metallic taste that reminded Sullivan of copper pennies. Most unsettling of all was the complete absence of dust or debris, as if the interior had been sealed away from the passage of time. Moving deeper into the craft, Sullivan discovered what appeared to be a control room. Banks of dark screens lined the walls, and in the center sat 3 chairs arranged in a triangular formation. The chairs were clearly designed for human occupants, but they were crafted with a level of technological sophistication that seemed decades ahead of anything Sullivan had ever encountered. Each chair was connected to the ceiling by a series of cables that pulsed with a faint blue energy. It was then that Sullivan heard it, a sound so faint that he almost dismissed it as his imagination. A rhythmic pattern that reminded him of breathing, coming from somewhere deeper within the craft. He radioed his findings to Reed and requested permission to investigate further. The breathing sound seemed to be coming from a section of the craft that was partially buried in the mountainside, accessible only through a narrow corridor that sloped downward into darkness. As Sullivan made his way through the corridor, the breathing became more distinct. It was definitely human, but labored and weak, as if the person was struggling to stay alive. The corridor opened into a small chamber that appeared to be some kind of medical bay. Along the walls were cylindrical pods, each one filled with the same mysterious liquid they'd seen throughout the craft. Most of the pods were empty, but one in the far corner showed signs of recent activity. Inside the active pod, suspended in the glowing liquid, was a human figure. The person appeared to be male, middle-aged, wearing what looked like a flight suit from the 1980s. Tubes connected to his body suggested some kind of life support system, and monitors nearby displayed vital signs that indicated the man was alive, but in some kind of suspended state. The nameplate on the pod was written in Cyrillic script, identifying the occupant as Colonel Alexei Volkov of the Soviet Air Force. Sullivan's discovery sent shockwaves through the team. According to the nameplate and identification visible through the pod's transparent surface, Colonel Volkov had been reported missing during a reconnaissance mission over Afghanistan in 1987. He had been presumed dead after his aircraft disappeared without a trace in this exact region. Yet here he was, somehow preserved in perfect condition after more than 3 decades, his vital signs indicating that he was not only alive but potentially conscious. The implications of their discovery were staggering. Not only had they found evidence of technology that shouldn't exist, but they'd also uncovered a Soviet pilot who had been missing for over 30 years. The craft itself raised questions that none of them were equipped to answer. Where had it come from? Who had built it? And most importantly, how had it managed to keep Colonel Volkov alive for so long in what appeared to be some kind of suspended animation? Reed made the difficult decision to establish a temporary base camp at the site, while they awaited further orders from command. The discovery was too significant to abandon, but it was also too dangerous to handle without proper support and expertise. As night fell over the Afghan mountains, the team settled in for what would be the first of many long nights guarding their impossible find, unaware that their discovery would soon attract attention from forces they never could have imagined. The encrypted satellite phone buzzed at exactly 0300 hours, jolting Lieutenant Commander Reed from his restless sleep. The voice on the other end belonged to Admiral Patricia Hawkins, Director of Naval Special Operations, and her tone carried an urgency that made Reed's blood run cold. Within 6 hours, their remote mountain position would be swarming with personnel from agencies he'd never heard of, carrying clearance levels that made his own top-secret rating look like a library card. Dr. Sarah Martinez arrived with the first wave of specialists, her helicopter touching down in a whirlwind of dust and rotor wash. As the lead xenobiologist for a classified government program known only as Project Looking Glass, she had been studying reports of anomalous discoveries for the better part of a decade. Nothing, however, had prepared her for what she found in the Afghan mountains. The craft's composition defied conventional physics, constructed from materials that seemed to exist in a state somewhere between solid and energy. While Dr. Martinez and her team began their analysis of the craft's exterior, Reed found himself dealing with an entirely different problem. The breathing pattern of the figure in the pod had begun to change, becoming more rapid and erratic. The monitors showed increased brain activity, suggesting that Colonel Volkov was somehow becoming aware of his surroundings, despite remaining in his suspended state. More troubling still, the pod's life support systems were showing signs of strain after decades of continuous operation. Sergeant Chen discovered the first major breakthrough while examining the craft's power source. Hidden beneath layers of the strange metallic hull, he found what appeared to be a crystalline core that pulsed with the same blue energy they'd observed throughout the vessel. The crystal was roughly the size of a basketball and generated more power than a nuclear reactor, yet produced no radiation or heat signature. When Chen attempted to scan it with conventional equipment, the instrument simply failed to register its presence. Dr. Martinez's analysis of the craft's interior revealed technology that seemed to blend organic and mechanical elements in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The walls weren't simply metal panels but appeared to be living tissue that had been somehow fused with advanced circuitry. The mysterious liquid filling the tubes and pods contained microscopic organisms that defied classification, existing in a state that was neither fully alive nor completely inorganic. When samples were extracted for testing, they immediately began to deteriorate, as if they could only survive within the craft's unique environment. The situation became even more complex when the team discovered that the craft wasn't simply crashed, but had been deliberately buried. Excavation around the hull revealed evidence of careful placement, as if someone had wanted to hide the vessel while keeping it accessible. Geological surveys indicated that the burial had occurred sometime in the late 1980s, around the same time that Colonel Volkov had disappeared. This raised disturbing questions about who had been responsible for concealing the craft and whether they might still be active in the area. As night fell on their second day at the site, The monitors connected to Volkov's pod began registering unprecedented activity. His brain patterns showed characteristics that Dr. Martinez had never seen in her years of studying consciousness and suspended animation. The colonel appeared to be experiencing some form of accelerated REM sleep, as if 30 years of dreams were being compressed into a few hours of activity. More unsettling still, the other empty pods throughout the craft began showing similar energy signatures, suggesting that they had once contained other occupants who were no longer present. The first sign of external interest in their discovery came in the form of encrypted radio transmissions, intercepted by their communications specialist. The signals were being broadcast on frequencies that weren't supposed to exist, using encryption methods that their most advanced equipment couldn't decode. The transmissions appeared to be coming from multiple locations throughout the region, suggesting a network of observers who had been monitoring the area for an extended period. Reed made the decision to increase security around the site, positioning his men in defensive positions while Dr. Martinez continued her work inside the craft. It was during this heightened state of alert that they discovered the craft's most disturbing feature. Hidden in a section they had initially thought was simply damaged, they found what appeared to be a laboratory containing specimens that defied explanation. Preserved in the same mysterious liquid were tissue samples that appeared to be of human origin, but with characteristics that suggested extensive genetic modification. The laboratory contained detailed records written in multiple languages, including English, Russian, and symbols that matched those found throughout the craft. The documents detailed experiments that had apparently been conducted over several decades, focusing on the effects of the craft's technology on human physiology. According to the records, Colonel Volkov had not been the craft's only occupant but had been selected for long-term preservation while others had been subjected to different experimental protocols. Dr. Martinez's team made another breakthrough when they discovered that the craft systems were still partially operational. The central computer, if it could be called that, was more like a living organism that had been integrated with advanced technology. When they managed to establish a basic interface, they found data logs that suggested the craft had been in operation for much longer than they had initially believed. The earliest entries dated back to the 1940s, indicating that the vessel had been present on Earth for at least 40 years before Colonel Volkov's disappearance. The most shocking revelation came when they accessed the craft's navigation systems. The star charts and coordinate systems were unlike anything in terrestrial databases, suggesting that the craft had originated from outside Earth's solar system. However, the flight logs indicated that it had been operating within Earth's atmosphere for decades, conducting what appeared to be systematic observation and collection missions across the globe. The Afghan mountains had served as just one of several hidden bases, with others potentially scattered across remote locations worldwide. As the team delved deeper into the craft's systems, they began to understand the true scope of what they had discovered. This wasn't simply a crashed alien vessel, but part of an ongoing operation that had been studying human civilization for the better part of a century. Colonel Volkov's preservation wasn't an accident, but part of a deliberate program to study the effects of their technology on human subjects. The implications were staggering, suggesting that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence hadn't been a recent development, but an ongoing relationship that had been carefully hidden from public knowledge. The encrypted transmissions they had been intercepting suddenly ceased, replaced by an ominous silence that made Reed increasingly uncomfortable. His team had noticed subtle changes in the local environment since their arrival. Birds had stopped singing, insects had disappeared, and even the wind seemed to carry an unnatural quality. It was as if their presence at the site had triggered some kind of response from forces that preferred to remain hidden. Dr. Martinez made the decision to attempt awakening Colonel Volkov, believing that he might hold crucial information about the craft and its operators. The pod's revival systems were incredibly sophisticated, designed to gradually return an occupant to consciousness while monitoring every aspect of their physiology. As the process began, Volkov's vital signs started to normalize, and for the first time in over 30 years, his eyes began to flutter open. Colonel Alexei Volkov's first breath in 37 years came as a gasping, desperate inhalation that echoed through the medical bay like a man drowning in reverse. His eyes, once a piercing blue according to his military records, now held flecks of the same ethereal glow that pulsed through the craft's crystalline power source. Dr. Martinez monitored his vital signs as he slowly regained consciousness, noting biological readings that defied every medical textbook she had ever studied. When Volkov finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of decades spent in unnatural sleep. His English was accented but precise, suggesting education far beyond what his Soviet military file indicated. "You should not have found this place in," he whispered, his words causing the monitoring equipment to register spikes in electromagnetic activity throughout the craft. "They will know you are here. They have always been watching." The colonel's debriefing revealed a story that challenged everything the team thought they understood about the Cold War and humanity's place in the universe. In 1987, Volkov had been part of a classified Soviet program called Operation Aurora, designed to investigate anomalous aerial phenomena that had been appearing over sensitive military installations. His mission had been to intercept and document what Soviet intelligence believed to be advanced American reconnaissance aircraft operating in Afghan airspace. Instead, Volkov had encountered something that existed far beyond the technological capabilities of either superpower. The craft he now found himself imprisoned within had been conducting systematic surveys of human military capabilities, collecting data on nuclear weapons, advanced aircraft, and the psychological profiles of military personnel. When his MiG-29 had been disabled by some form of energy weapon, Volkov had ejected directly into the path of the extraterrestrial vessel. His capture had been swift and surprisingly gentle. The beings operating the craft appeared to be humanoid, but with subtle differences that marked them as clearly non-terrestrial. Their skin had a translucent quality that revealed complex circulatory systems beneath, and their eyes were larger than human proportions would allow. They communicated through a combination of telepathic projection and complex mathematical concepts that somehow translated directly into understanding within Volkov's mind. The colonel explained that his preservation had been part of an ongoing study of human adaptation to their technology. The craft served as both a research vessel and a long-term monitoring station, with the ability to remain hidden for decades while its occupants conducted detailed observations of human civilization. Volkov had been selected for extended study because his military training and psychological profile made him an ideal subject for testing the limits of human consciousness under their influence. During his time in suspended animation, Volkov had remained partially aware of his surroundings, experiencing the passage of decades as a series of fragmented dreams and visions. He had witnessed the rise and fall of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War, and the beginning of the digital age through the craft's monitoring systems. The beings had used his human perspective to better understand the rapid changes occurring in human society, particularly the acceleration of technological development. Dr. Martinez's examination of Volkov revealed biological changes that should have been impossible. His cellular structure showed signs of enhancement that had dramatically slowed the aging process while increasing his physical and mental capabilities. The mysterious liquid that had sustained him for decades had gradually altered his DNA, incorporating elements that appeared to be of extraterrestrial origin. Yet despite these modifications, he remained fundamentally human, suggesting that the changes had been carefully controlled and reversible. The colonel's return to consciousness triggered a cascade of changes throughout the craft. Systems that had remained dormant for years suddenly activated, and the vessel began preparing for what appeared to be an emergency departure protocol. Panels throughout the ship displayed countdown sequences in the alien script, while the crystalline power source increased its energy output to levels that made the air itself seem to vibrate with barely contained force. Volkov explained that his awakening would alert the craft's operators to the presence of unauthorized personnel. The beings maintained a network of similar vessels hidden across the globe, each serving as both a research station and a communication relay. His revival had effectively sent a signal to every other installation, informing them that their long-term study of human development had been compromised by the discovery of one of their primary research sites. The team's communications equipment began registering massive electromagnetic interference. As the craft's systems fully activated, satellite phones stopped working, GPS devices provided impossible readings, and even basic radio communication became filled with static that seemed to carry patterns of meaning just beyond human comprehension. The interference wasn't random, but appeared to be a deliberate attempt to isolate the site from outside contact. Reed ordered his men to prepare for immediate evacuation, but Volkov warned that leaving the craft might not be possible. The vessel's defensive systems had been designed to prevent unauthorized access to their technology, and activation of the departure protocol included measures to eliminate any potential security threats. The mountain itself began to tremble as ancient machinery buried deep within the rock face started to move. For the first time in decades, Dr. Martinez made a desperate attempt to download as much data as possible from the craft's computer systems before they lost access to the technology forever. The information she retrieved painted a picture of extraterrestrial involvement in human affairs that spanned centuries. The beings had been observing human development since at least the Renaissance, carefully guiding technological advancement while ensuring that humanity remained unaware of their presence. The downloaded files contained detailed analyses of major historical events, suggesting that many pivotal moments in human history had been subtly influenced by extraterrestrial intervention. The development of nuclear weapons, the space race, and even the end of the Cold War had been carefully orchestrated to accelerate human technological development while preventing self-destruction. Humanity was apparently being prepared for something, though the files provided no clear indication of what that ultimate purpose might be. As the craft's departure preparations intensified, Volkov began experiencing what he described as the calling, a telepathic summons from his former captors that was becoming increasingly difficult to resist. The biological modifications they had made to his system included programming that would compel him to return to their custody when activated. His struggle against this mental compulsion was visible as a physical battle, with his enhanced physiology warring against the extraterrestrial influences embedded in his cellular structure. The team faced an impossible choice. They could attempt to extract Volkov and as much technology as possible, risking the wrath of beings whose capabilities far exceeded human understanding. Alternatively, they could allow the craft to depart with its secrets intact, preserving the status quo but losing perhaps the greatest discovery in human history. The decision would have implications that reached far beyond their remote mountain outpost, potentially affecting the future of human civilization itself. The countdown sequences throughout the craft reached critical levels as systems that had slumbered for decades roared to life with alien purpose. The crystalline power source began emitting harmonics that seemed to resonate with something deep within the mountain, awakening machinery that predated any known human presence in the region. The team realized they were not just dealing with a single craft, but with an entire underground facility that had been hidden beneath the Afghan peaks for unknown centuries. Whatever decision they made, it would have to be made quickly. The beings who had created this technology were coming to reclaim their property, and they were unlikely to be pleased with the unauthorized intrusion into their carefully maintained secrecy. The first sign that they were no longer alone came as shadows moving against the natural light filtering through the cave entrance. Sullivan, positioned at the outer perimeter, caught glimpses of figures that moved with fluid precision across the rocky terrain, their forms seeming to bend light around them in ways that made direct observation nearly impossible. His radio crackled with static as he attempted to report the contact, but the electromagnetic interference had grown so intense that communication had become virtually useless. Inside the craft, Colonel Volkov's condition was rapidly deteriorating as the telepathic summons intensified. His enhanced physiology was betraying him, the alien modifications in his cellular structure responding to signals that originated from somewhere beyond the mountain. Dr. Martinez watched helplessly as readings from her medical equipment showed his brain activity spiking to dangerous levels, while his body temperature began fluctuating between extremes that should have been fatal to any normal human being. Reed made the tactical decision to split his team, leaving half to guard the extraction point, while the others attempted to gather as much intelligence as possible before the situation became completely untenable. The craft's systems were now operating at full capacity, generating energy readings that exceeded anything in their equipment's ability to measure. The crystalline power source had begun emitting a low-frequency hum that seemed to penetrate not just their equipment, but their very bones, creating a sense of unease that went beyond simple fear. Sergeant Chen's demolitions expertise proved invaluable as he worked to create charges that might disable the craft's departure systems without destroying the technology they desperately needed to preserve. However, his conventional explosive seemed almost primitive compared to the advanced materials comprising the vessel's hull. Every attempt to attach charges resulted in the devices simply sliding off the surface, as if the metal itself was actively repelling foreign objects. The beings revealed themselves gradually, emerging from concealment with a deliberate pace that suggested complete confidence in their control of the situation. They stood roughly 7 feet in height, with elongated limbs that moved with an almost hypnotic grace. Their faces were hauntingly beautiful in their alienness, featuring large eyes that reflected light like polished obsidian and skin that seemed to shift between translucent and opaque, depending on the viewing angle. Most unsettling of all was their complete silence as they approached, moving without sound across terrain that should have announced their presence. Dr. Martinez found herself face to face with one of the beings as it materialized inside the craft's medical bay. Rather than the hostile encounter she had expected, the creature regarded her with what seemed like curious interest, its large eyes taking in every detail of her appearance and equipment. When it finally spoke, the words formed directly in her mind without any physical sound, carrying concepts and emotions that no human language could adequately express. The communication revealed that humanity's discovery of their installation was not entirely unexpected. The beings, who called themselves the Watchers, had been monitoring human technological development for centuries, waiting for the species to reach a level of sophistication that would make contact inevitable. The craft in the Afghan mountains was one of dozens of similar installations scattered across the globe, each serving as both an observation post and a preparation facility for eventual revelation. Colonel Volkov's preservation had been part of a larger program designed to study human adaptation to extraterrestrial technology and biology. The Watchers had selected individuals from various nations and time periods, using them as test subjects to understand how humanity might respond to direct contact with alien intelligence. Volkov's military background and psychological resilience had made him an ideal candidate for long-term study, while his Soviet origins provided insight into one of Earth's major political systems during a critical period of development. The revelation that came next challenged everything the team thought they understood about human history. The Watchers explained that humanity was not native to Earth, but was itself the result of a colonization program that had been implemented thousands of years ago. The human species was a hybrid creation, combining the genetics of the Watchers with primitive hominids that had already existed on the planet. This explained the rapid acceleration of human intelligence and technology compared to other terrestrial species. Earth had been selected as a nursery world, where the hybrid human species could develop and evolve under careful guidance until they reached a level of sophistication that would allow them to rejoin the greater galactic community. The Watchers had maintained hidden observation posts throughout human history, subtly influencing development to prevent premature self-destruction, while encouraging technological advancement. Major historical events, from the rise of agriculture to the development of nuclear weapons, had been carefully orchestrated to follow a predetermined evolutionary path. The current stage of human development had reached a critical juncture. Humanity's rapid technological advancement in the late 20th and early 21st centuries had accelerated beyond the Watchers' original projections, creating both opportunities and dangers that required more direct intervention. The discovery of their installation by military forces represented a key milestone in the contact protocol, indicating that humans were ready for the next phase of their development. However, not all members of the Watcher Collective agreed on how to proceed with humanity's advancement. The being communicating with Dr. Martinez belonged to a faction that favored gradual revelation and integration, believing that sudden contact would cause social and psychological trauma that could set human development back by centuries. Other factions within their society advocated for immediate open contact, while still others believed that humanity had developed in dangerous directions that required intervention or even termination of the experiment. The internal conflict among the Watchers had led to the situation they now faced. The craft's emergency activation was not just a response to human discovery, but a signal for all factions to converge on Earth and make a final decision about humanity's future. Ships from across the galaxy were already en route to Earth, carrying representatives who would vote on whether to reveal themselves, continue the observation program, or implement what they euphemistically called planetary reset. Colonel Volkov's awakening had triggered this convergence because his consciousness contained crucial data about human psychological development under their influence. His 37 years of suspended animation had been spent not in passive storage but in active mental simulation, experiencing thousands of potential future scenarios for human civilization. The data in his enhanced mind represented the most comprehensive psychological profile of human potential that the Watchers had ever compiled. Dr. Martinez realized that their small team had stumbled into the middle of a cosmic political crisis with implications for the survival of human civilization. The technology they had discovered was just the tip of an iceberg that extended far beyond Earth's atmosphere, involving civilizations and conflicts that spanned galaxies. Their actions in the next few hours would influence decisions that would determine whether humanity would be allowed to continue its development or would be classified as a failed experiment, requiring termination. The countdown sequences throughout the craft reached their final stages as massive ships began appearing in Earth's upper atmosphere, invisible to conventional detection methods, but clearly visible to the Watchers' advanced sensors. Each vessel represented a different faction within their society, carrying representatives who had traveled vast distances to participate in what amounted to humanity's trial. The verdict would be based not just on human technological achievement, but on their capacity for wisdom, cooperation, and peaceful coexistence with other intelligent species. Reed's team found themselves in the impossible position of serving as unofficial ambassadors for their entire species, their actions and decisions being carefully observed and analyzed by beings whose intelligence exceeded human understanding. The weight of representing 7 billion people in a cosmic court proceeding was almost overwhelming. Yet they had no choice but to proceed with whatever plan they could devise in the limited time remaining. The mountain itself had become a focal point for energies that defied conventional physics. As underground systems awakened after millennia of dormancy, the Watchers had built more than just observation posts. They had created a vast network of installations that could reshape the planet's surface if necessary, ensuring that their intervention capabilities exceeded anything human civilization could resist or even comprehend. The crucial moment arrived when the eldest Watcher entities began their assessment of Colonel Volkov's consciousness. These beings existed on a level of awareness that transcended individual identity, their minds operating as collective intelligences that had guided galactic development for millions of years. As they probed Volkov's enhanced neural pathways, they encountered something unexpected. Genuine human emotional depth combined with rational thought processes that had been refined by decades of alien enhancement. The assessment revealed that human consciousness possessed a unique quality that even the Watchers had not fully anticipated. While most species developed either strong emotional bonds or advanced logical reasoning, humans had somehow maintained both capabilities in equal measure. This balance created a form of consciousness that could appreciate beauty while solving complex problems, feel empathy while making difficult decisions, and maintain hope while acknowledging harsh realities. The eldest entities communicated their findings to the assembled factions through harmonics that resonated through the mountain itself. Dr. Martinez, still connected to the neural network, experienced these communications as waves of pure concept that bypassed language entirely. The verdict was more complex than simple approval or termination. Humanity would be given a choice that no species before them had ever faced. Reed watched in amazement as the Watcher who had first contacted Dr. Martinez began to change, its form becoming more substantial and somehow more real than before. The being explained that the final decision had been made not by vote, but by consensus among entities whose perspectives spanned cosmic timescales. Humanity's unique consciousness had earned them something unprecedented, the opportunity to choose their own path forward with full knowledge of the consequences. The choice presented to humanity through Reed's team was both simple and profound. They could continue their current development path with subtle Watcher guidance, eventually joining the galactic community as junior partners in a relationship that would last for millennia. Alternatively, they could choose complete independence, receiving advanced technology and knowledge but losing the safety net of Watcher protection and guidance. The third option was the most radical. Humans could choose to undergo the same enhancement process that had been applied to Volkov, becoming a bridge species that could help other developing civilizations navigate the transition to galactic awareness. Each choice carried enormous implications for humanity's future. Continued guidance would ensure steady progress and safety, but would limit human potential to what the Watchers considered acceptable. Independence would allow unlimited development, but carried the risk of self-destruction or conflict with other galactic civilizations. The enhancement option would grant humanity incredible capabilities, but would fundamentally alter what it meant to be human. Colonel Volkov's voice, when he finally spoke after hours of psychic battle, carried the weight of 37 years of enhanced perspective. His recommendation was clear. Humanity should choose independence not because it was the safest path, but because the species' greatest strength lay in their ability to find their own solutions to impossible problems. The Watchers had created humanity to be bridge builders, but true bridges required independence from both sides they connected. The installation began to transform as the Watchers implemented the consequences of humanity's choice. The technology that had remained hidden for decades began revealing itself, with advanced systems emerging from concealment throughout the mountain complex. These weren't just observation tools but gift repositories, containing knowledge and technology that would accelerate human development by centuries while still allowing them to maintain their essential humanity. Dr. Martinez, disconnected from the neural network with her consciousness forever, changed by the experience. She now carried within her mind a complete understanding of humanity's place in the cosmic order, along with the knowledge needed to help her species navigate the challenges that lay ahead. The responsibility was overwhelming, but she also felt a sense of optimism that came from knowing that humans had been judged worthy of independence by beings whose wisdom spanned galactic civilizations. The Watcher ships began their departure as silently as they had arrived, their massive forms disappearing into dimensions that human physics couldn't yet explain. However, they left behind more than just technology and knowledge. Hidden installations around the globe began activating, revealing themselves to carefully selected individuals who would help guide humanity's transition to their new role in the galaxy. The age of secrecy was ending, but the age of wonder was just beginning. Moment of decision arrived with devastating swiftness, as massive energy signatures began appearing throughout Earth's atmosphere. Dr. Martinez watched in horror as her instruments detected the arrival of vessels, so large they dwarfed anything in human imagination, their presence causing atmospheric disturbances that registered on seismic equipment thousands of miles away. The Watchers standing before her communicated a sense of urgency that transcended language, indicating that the final vote on humanity's fate would begin within hours. Colonel Volkov's enhanced consciousness became the battleground for competing factions of Watchers, each attempting to access the psychological data stored in his modified mind. His body convulsed as alien intelligences fought for control of information that would determine how humanity was ultimately judged. Dr. Martinez realized that protecting Volkov's mental integrity might be the only way to ensure that the psychological profile presented to the Cosmic Tribunal would accurately represent human potential rather than a distorted version manipulated by those who favored humanity's termination. Reed made a command decision that violated every military protocol he had ever learned. Instead of attempting to extract his team and their discoveries, he ordered them to defend the installation and protect Volkov at all costs. The colonel's mind contained not just data about human psychology, but potentially the key to understanding how humanity could successfully integrate with the greater galactic community. Losing that information to hostile factions would doom their species to judgment based on incomplete or deliberately skewed evidence. The Watcher, who had been communicating with Dr. Martinez, revealed its true identity as part of the faction that had originally seeded Earth with human life. These beings viewed humanity as their greatest creation, a species that had exceeded all original projections for development and adaptation. However, they were being challenged by conservative elements within their society who argued that human aggression and environmental destruction marked them as a failed experiment that posed a threat to galactic stability. The battle for Volkov's mind intensified as competing Watcher factions arrived at the installation. The craft's medical bay became a nexus of psychic energy, as alien intelligences fought to influence the data that would determine humanity's future. Each faction brought with them centuries of observation and analysis, but the unique perspective contained within Volkov's enhanced consciousness represented information that none of them possessed. Independently, Sullivan found himself defending against beings whose capabilities rendered conventional weapons useless. The Watchers moved through solid rock as easily as air, their technology allowing them to phase in and out of normal spacetime at will. His team's advanced military training proved inadequate against opponents who could predict their actions through telepathic observation and counter their strategies with technology that seemed to operate outside the laws of physics. Dr. Martinez made a breakthrough when she realized that the craft systems could be used to amplify human consciousness in the same way they had enhanced Volkov's mind. By connecting herself to the medical bay's neural interface, she could potentially access the same data networks that the Watchers were fighting to control. The procedure was extremely dangerous, as human consciousness was not designed to handle the vast information flows that comprised Watcher communication networks. The neural interface flooded Dr. Martinez's mind with perspectives that spanned millennia and encompassed civilizations across the galaxy. She experienced the rise and fall of dozens of species that had been nurtured by the Watchers, some achieving integration into the galactic community, while others had been terminated as evolutionary dead ends. The pattern was clear. Species that demonstrated wisdom, cooperation, and respect for life were allowed to continue, while those that showed excessive aggression or environmental destruction were eliminated before they could spread beyond their homeworlds. Through the enhanced connection, Dr. Martinez gained access to the Watchers' true assessment of humanity. The species showed unprecedented adaptability and creativity, developing technology and social structures at rates that exceeded their original projections. However, human tendencies toward warfare, environmental exploitation, and social inequality had created concerns about their potential impact on galactic civilization. The debate centered not on human intelligence or technological capability, but on their moral and ethical development. Colonel Volkov's consciousness became a bridge between human and Watcher perspectives, his enhanced mind serving as a translation matrix that allowed both species to understand each other's fundamental motivations. Through his neural pathways, the competing factions gained insight into human emotional complexity, the species' capacity for both creation and destruction, and their potential for growth beyond their current limitations. The data revealed that human aggression was often motivated by fear and survival instincts rather than inherent malice, while their environmental destruction stemmed from ignorance rather than deliberate disregard for life. The revelation that changed everything came when Volkov's memories revealed the true purpose of the Watcher experiment. Humanity had not been created merely as another species to join the galactic community, but as a potential bridge between the physical and metaphysical realms. Human consciousness possessed unique properties that allowed them to interface with technologies and concepts that even the Watchers found challenging. This capability made humanity either the greatest asset or the greatest threat the galaxy had ever seen. The conservative faction's concerns became clearer as the neural networks revealed their true fears. Human consciousness was evolving rapidly, developing capabilities that could potentially exceed those of their creators. The aggressive tendencies that worried the conservatives were not just about physical warfare, but about humanity's potential to challenge the established order of galactic civilization. They feared that humans might eventually develop beyond the need for Watcher guidance, potentially making their ancient civilization obsolete. Reed's team realized they were witnessing more than a trial. They were observing a cosmic power struggle that had been building for millennia. The Watchers themselves were divided between those who embraced change and evolution and those who sought to maintain the status quo. Humanity's rapid development had forced this conflict into the open, making them unwitting catalysts for a civil war among beings whose technology could reshape entire solar systems. The installation's systems began registering the arrival of the most powerful Watcher vessels, massive constructs that existed partially outside normal spacetime and could exert influence across vast distances. These ships carried the eldest members of their civilization, being so ancient that they had witnessed the birth and death of entire galactic civilizations. Their perspective on humanity would carry enormous weight in the final decision. but their motivations remained completely alien to human understanding. Dr. Martinez's connection to the neural network allowed her to sense the approaching culmination of events. The final vote would not be a simple democracy, but a complex process that took into account thousands of variables, from humanity's technological trajectory to their potential impact on galactic ecosystems. The outcome would determine not just whether humans would be allowed to continue existing, but whether they would be welcomed as equals, managed as children, or eliminated as a threat. The 6 months after the mountain incident, the world had changed in ways both subtle and profound. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood before a congressional committee that officially didn't exist, briefing senators and representatives who had been sworn to secrecy levels that exceeded anything in government history. The technology recovered from the installation had already begun revolutionizing everything from medicine to energy production, but the public remained unaware that these breakthroughs originated from contact with an alien civilization. Colonel Alexei Volkov had become something unprecedented in human history, a living bridge between terrestrial and extraterrestrial consciousness. His enhanced mind could process information at speeds that allowed him to serve as a translator between human scientists and the advanced technologies left behind by the Watchers. The Soviet military officer who had disappeared in 1987 now found himself at the center of humanity's greatest transformation, helping to guide his species through changes that would determine their survival as an independent civilization. Lieutenant Commander Reed discovered that his team's actions in the Afghan mountains had been observed and recorded by Watcher installations around the globe. Their decisions under impossible pressure had provided crucial data about human character that influenced the final verdict on humanity's fate. The courage, adaptability, and moral reasoning they displayed became part of the psychological profile that convinced the eldest Watcher entities that humans deserved the chance to chart their own course among the stars. The hidden installations revealed by the Watcher's departure contained more than just advanced technology. Each facility served as a library of galactic knowledge, containing the accumulated wisdom of civilizations that had successfully made the transition from planetary to cosmic awareness. Scientists and philosophers around the world began receiving encrypted messages, directing them to specific coordinates where they would find the information needed to help humanity avoid the pitfalls that had destroyed other species. Master Chief Sullivan found his military expertise in constant demand as governments worldwide struggled to understand the security implications of their new situation. The knowledge that Earth had been under observation for millennia raised questions about every major historical event and military conflict. More importantly, the realization that humanity was now truly alone in the galaxy, without Watcher protection, meant that they needed to develop defensive capabilities that could protect them from less benevolent alien civilizations. The technology transfer process proceeded with careful deliberation, as Dr. Martinez and her expanded team worked to ensure that humanity's rapid advancement didn't destabilize their social and economic systems. The Watchers had provided detailed guidelines about how to integrate advanced technology without causing societal collapse. Having observed the consequences of uncontrolled technological acceleration in other species, the goal was evolution, not revolution, allowing human civilization to adapt gradually to its new capabilities. Sergeant Chen applied his demolitions expertise to understanding Watcher construction methods, discovering that their technology was based on principles that human science was only beginning to comprehend. The materials that had seemed almost magical were actually applications of physics that operated at quantum levels, manipulating reality itself, rather than simply rearranging existing matter. This knowledge opened up possibilities for construction and manufacturing that could solve many of humanity's resource and environmental challenges. The psychological impact of learning about humanity's true origins proved to be one of the greatest challenges of the transition period. Religious leaders, philosophers, and scientists struggled to reconcile the revelation that humans were essentially cosmic orphans, created by alien intelligence, but now abandoned to find their own path. Some viewed this as liberation from parental oversight, while others experienced existential crisis at the loss of their cosmic protectors. Colonel Volkov's unique perspective became invaluable in helping humanity understand their new role in the galaxy. His enhanced consciousness could perceive threats and opportunities that normal human awareness couldn't detect, making him an early warning system for challenges that lay ahead. Through his neural link to Watcher technology, he could monitor cosmic communication networks and alert Earth to the approach of other civilizations or cosmic phenomena that might affect human development. The installation in Afghanistan became the first official extraterrestrial research facility, though its existence remained classified at levels that made nuclear weapons programs seem open to public scrutiny. Scientists from around the world worked in shifts to unlock the secrets of Watcher technology, while military personnel provided security against the possibility that other alien civilizations might attempt to claim the abandoned equipment for themselves. Dr. Martinez established protocols for gradually releasing revolutionary discoveries to the public through seemingly natural scientific breakthroughs. Medical advances that could extend human lifespan by centuries were introduced as incremental improvements in existing treatments. Energy technologies that could provide unlimited clean power were presented as advanced renewable energy systems. The goal was to transform human civilization without triggering panic or social upheaval. The most profound change came in humanity's understanding of their place in the universe. They were no longer a young species waiting for contact with alien intelligence, but cosmic teenagers who had been given independence from their guardians. This realization brought both tremendous opportunity and equally tremendous responsibility. Every decision they made would determine whether they joined the ranks of successful galactic civilizations or became another cautionary tale of species that destroyed themselves after achieving technological advancement. Reed's team remained together as the core of what became known as the Contact Protocol Division, a highly classified military unit responsible for managing humanity's transition to cosmic awareness. Their mission expanded far beyond their original SEAL training to include diplomacy, xenobiology, and cosmic security. They became humanity's first line of defense against threats that conventional military forces couldn't even comprehend. The Watcher communication networks continued to function after their departure, though now they served as a cosmic internet that humanity could access through the enhanced consciousness of individuals like Volkov. These networks provided warning of approaching civilizations, some friendly and others decidedly hostile. Humanity's window of peaceful development would not last forever, and they needed to prepare for eventual contact with species that might not share the Watcher's benevolent intentions. As the first year of independence drew to a close, humanity faced the future with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. They possessed technology that could solve their greatest challenges and knowledge that could guide them toward wisdom, but they also carried the burden of knowing that their survival depended entirely on their own choices. The broken, buried, and bleeding SEAL team that had discovered Colonel Volkov had uncovered more than a legend still breathing. They had found humanity's true destiny among the stars. The Afghan mountains continued to hold their secrets, but now they also held hope. Hidden beneath the rocky peaks, advanced technology worked tirelessly to prepare humanity for challenges that lay ahead. The installation had become a symbol of human potential, proof that their species possessed the courage and wisdom needed to survive as an independent civilization. Colonel Volkov's breathing, so faint when first discovered, had become the rhythm by which humanity measured its progress toward a future among the stars. The legend they had uncovered wasn't just one man's story of survival against impossible odds, but humanity's own legend beginning to unfold. The SEALs who had dug through rock and ice to find a breathing man in an alien pod had actually discovered the future of their entire species. Now it was up to all of humanity to prove worthy of the independence they had been granted, to become the bridge builders they were created to be, and to write their own legend among the cosmic civilizations that filled the galaxy with wonder and possibility.